First of all, let me welcome everybody to this workshop. I also want to thank the team that put this together and Madam President Ronita. Thank you for bringing me on board onto this workshop. It's an honor for me, and also thank you for the time given to me to also discuss about agriculture and the food market or the food systems, looking at Nigeria and also looking at Africa holistically. So first of all, as an introduction, because I have 25 minutes, so I have to be able to use it judiciously and also drive on major points that I want to discuss about. So my name is Akin Alabi. I'm the visionary and also the co-founder at Corporate Farmers International. It's an agribusiness company, and also we're into 5 major business models, from farm management services to agri-tech services, to communications, media and PR and marketing. We are also into capacity building and training, and also we're into commodity exchange and trading. So these are major 5 business value chain, and we have our office in Lagos, Nigeria, and Abuja. So for the topic of this workshop, or which I'm going to dwell on, which is on agriculture and the food market. So first of all, we're going to take it in bits. So number one, we need to first of all, what is understanding agricultural value chain enterprise? That's the first one. Then 2, we're going to look at what is food market or food systems. And also we're going to also look at the relationship between the value chain enterprise actors, or actors across the entire value chain. Who are these actors and how does it affect the food systems? And also lastly, what is our responsibility as Africans or as Nigerians in driving home proper food systems in Nigeria, what we call food security in Africa or Nigeria. So the first topic of conversation, which is understanding agricultural value chain enterprise. I'm sure we all know what agriculture is all about. Most of us will say, access to food, different things. We'll say access to food, ability to till the soil and get food, a whole lot. But one thing we try to break out is that Africa needs to begin to look at agriculture beyond farming. So when I say agriculture, mostly in the mindset or the perception major Africans do have is that man that is always tilling the ground. That is basically the first line of concept you have. And so what we've been able to do over the years of practice in industry is to say, look, agriculture, or what my mentor, Akinwale Additional, always say, agribusiness, it's actually beyond farming. So you need to look at it beyond just tilling the ground. There are various value chain enterprise that comes together and that makes agriculture a business. So today we have agribusiness, the culture coming together to form a business so that younger folks, stakeholders can now begin to see it as a professional career. And that is the essence focus or major focus, or why we created agriculture today in Africa, and why we need to take agriculture or agribusiness seriously. So understanding the value chain enterprise, what are these value chain enterprise? So let me take it one by one. We have production, which is the critical element of the value chain. Production simply means the ability to till the soil, okay, and produce. So production comes in different categories in terms of crop production. We have livestock production, we have the aquaculture. So these are the major 3 production elements or production. We have key factors or key production elements that we have today. Crop production can come in terms of arable crops or cash crops, and we have when we say arable crops, that comes in terms of 3 months crops, 4 months crops, like your maize, your cassava, your rice, your wheat, your millets. These are basically arable crops that you can grow and more like staple food that we need on a daily basis. So we also have the cash crops. Cash crops are crops that takes a maximum of 3-4 years to harvest. So we have the likes of the oil palm, we have the cashew, we have the citrus family, basically crops that takes a whole lot of period. So it's more like an investable crop. So you have to be very patient before you're able to invest in such crops. We also have livestock. So livestock is basically the animals in terms of the poultry, the birds. We have the goats, we have cattle, we have sheep, So these are livestock services. Around livestock, we have a lot of, production elements around it for dairy milking, for meat production, so many things for leather. These are other value chains around livestock production. So we also have and also poultry for eggs and the likes. Also, we have the aqua, which is a fish, okay? So that does more about water. So we have fish production, whereby we have different kind of fish, from catfish to tilapia to mackerel, different kind of fish. So these are basically production value chain we have around the agricultural enterprise. That's one. Then two, we have processing. So processing means the ability to convert what you produce into another dynamic value chain. So for that, I always use cocoa beans or cocoa as a major example of processing. Today, Africa is known for its major production in cocoa beans or cocoa as a whole. So when I say cocoa, it means the chocolates we buy today that is being imported into Africa or into Nigeria is also grown in Africa. We have countries like Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, and Togo that has, different cocoa plantation. So we must be able to harness our cocoa into a processing cycle to have chocolates, okay? So that means that Africa needs to begin to look at its processing value chain. And that is why we have likes of the AFCTFA, being created so that Africa can begin to look at processing for exports and for distribution, okay? And so that we can begin to grow our internal GDP and also do not solely rely on importation of consumables, majorly food consumables. So these are the reasons why we are clamoring that once you're producing, you must also be able to process what you produce into other finished or consumable goods. Then you also have distribution or logistics. So today, because when you produce commodities, there's also need for you to move those commodities around different states or different point zones or different states or different center zones. For example, today in Nigeria, our major production centers are more in the north, okay? And the consuming states are more in the southwest. So for example, I'm going to use likes of Kaduna, or let me use likes of, let me use Jigawa, for example, that produces lots of tomatoes, okay? That produces tomato in large tons and numbers. And Lagos, that has a population of over 20 million plus, okay? So the person that moved those commodities from Jigawa down to Lagos is also involved in the value chain of distribution and logistics. And those are critical elements that, either let you make profits or determines your loss. And that value chain alone is so critical that we need more players to be able to invest a lot in that distribution line. And because of the fact that today Nigeria is solely dependent on road transport system, it's quite difficult for us to move commodities in a jiffy. For example, countries that can move their commodities with cargo, but Africa is solely dependent, or Nigeria is solely dependent in moving their commodities through the road system, which causes delay, and you have different accidents that happens, in moving those commodities. So those are critical factors within the value chain: logistics, distribution, process. So we also have the market. So market is also a very important element in the value chain, because whatever you produce must also go to the market for purchase. A man that produces rice in Kebbi, for example, needs to sell his rice to where it will be purchased. Today, Lagos with over 20 million plus population, consumes an average ton of over 5,000 or more tons of 5,000 or more tons of rice a day. So it shows you the extent in which we consume our rice, and also the extent in which is being demanded for. So it means that production goes in on a daily basis, while also there's demand for it for consumption. So for somebody to produce, and one of the things I always advise is that before you start producing at all, you must be able to identify your potential markets. You just don't produce without having a market for offtake or for consumption. And so that when you produce, you not start looking for markets that is not there. So I always advise most intending farmers or value chain experts or stakeholders that say, look, before you start producing at all, please be rest assured that you have a market that is ready to offtake your produce. And those are critical elements. Number 5, we also have technology or e-commerce. Because today technology has taken a whole shape in the agricultural industry. So it means that technology serves as an enabler, okay, as an enabler to enhance agricultural productivity. So it means that what it would take a farmer to do for a work, an activity that would take a farmer to do for, let's say, 5 days. With technology, you can do that same thing for less than 5 hours. So a typical example is using of drone technology as a spraying machine to spray herbicides or to spray fertilizer on your farmland. Okay, if you're going to employ a laborer or manual system whereby you have to use humans to do the spraying for you via knapsack and all that, depending on the large size of land, it might take you probably 5 days to complete. But with technology, the same task will take you nothing less than just 5 hours, depending on the size of farmland you're actually working on. So technology serves as an enabler to help us enhance productivity and also make the work of our farmers more simple and also more productive. And that is the work of technology. And today we have different e-commerce platform whereby you can sell your farm produce from your farm gates to market. So there's no need for me to come down to your market with the mobile app. I can just demand or request for some farm commodity, either tomatoes, whatever it is part of my app, and it is brought down to my destination. Those are the powers of e-commerce today in technology to make the work of our farmers and also to drive profit in agribusiness. We also have finance, and because finance is the most critical element for the growth of an agricultural sector. If you ask any farmer today and say, look, what are the things that will, what do you need? The first thing they will tell you is that we need money. And it shows that finance is very critical to the development of an agricultural sector today in Nigeria or Africa at large. So finance can be gotten through the traditional means, that's the commercial banks, DMBs and the likes, and also via the capital market. So with capital markets can also get funding to help you, upscale your market produce and also help you attain better heights and also do more for expansion if you are, on your agricultural trade or commodity. And it shows how deep finance is for the growth of the sector. But today is a major challenge because most farmers find it difficult or hard to access funding or finance. That's why we also try to look into grants, innovative finance models that would help farmers to access funding. We also have insurance. Mostly is required when you're moving your commodity from point A to point Z. So we advise farmers to always get what we call the GIT, that is goods in transit. So insurance. So it helps farmers to mitigate their losses and also serve as a protection for farmers that are moving commodities from one point to another. And also the health of farmers, the farmers' health insurance are also available so that when you are sick, when you have stroke, when you have disaster on the farmland, we have covers that will protect you. We also have extension services. So this does more with communications, PR, whereby you can relate easily because farmer needs information for growth. Farmer needs information to upscale. Farmer needs information on price of commodities. These are the roles of extension services. So extension workers bring the information from the federal government or state government down to the rural areas where the farmers do exist. And these are the critical elements or critical things that we do require for our growth in the sector. And that's one of the things that we also clamor that, look, extension workers in the industry must also be treated specially. And lastly, we must look at exports. Exports is also another means in which helps to enhance productivity. export of commodity helps to grow the country's GDP. If you look at the yardstick of Nigerian export value within last year, it was so disappointing. But because we have shortfall in production, and as a result of different factors, we have the COVID issue is still there. We have security issue is still there affecting production. We have increase in inputs. The Russia-Ukraine war is another major factor. We have inflation, cost increase in prices. So these are critical things that affect production. And once production is affected, it's difficult to grow production of any agricultural commodity. So number two, we'll be looking at what is food market, or what is called food systems. So if you look at all the 8 value chain I've mentioned here, how do we now connect the dots to create a proper food systems market? So it's so simple, because each one rely on the other for them to work. Because if one of these food systems is plugged out, it will be difficult for us to have a proper transmission and attain food security. And I'll use an example of when we had lockdown during COVID-19, and we had several breaks in national food chain crisis. We have a national food chain crisis, or food system crisis, whereby even as a farmer, you can't move your commodity from your farm gates to another destination. Reason because there was no movement. Okay, so food systems are critical element that brings all the value chains together. And once there's a breakout in a food chain system, it's difficult for us to attain food security. So it means that for us to get to that point, we must be able to look at the various actors, which I'm still going to explain later. Who are the various actors within these food systems, or these food markets? Who are they? So I'm going to pick, for example, let me pick production. Okay, in production, we have smallholder farmers, okay? And also we have both the smallholder farmers, we have the large-scale farmers, we have the commercial farmers, okay? Now, looking at the smallholder farmers, what are the things they would need to enhance production? Is it mechanized farming? Is it simple tools? Is it irrigation system? Is it funding? You need to look at, critically use an eagle eye to understand and know what they would need or require to enhance productivity. And if you look at a commercial farmer, you look deeply and say, okay, as a large-scale farmer, what are the things that you would need to help you enhance productivity? Okay, so each value chain actor is quite critical, so that you could begin to lock down value chain enterprise or value chain system for us to attain food security at the end of the day. Another example is logistics. Okay, so in logistics, if you look at mostly we're moving perishable commodities. Okay, you're moving tomatoes from let me use Nasarawa down to Lagos, and in Nigeria we always use large heavy load lorries to move these tomatoes. And if you get to a particular destination, and tomatoes is very perishable, okay, and you get to a particular destination and the truck got damaged, the tire busted, or the battery had an issue, or something went wrong with the vehicle, and you couldn't move again. So the vehicle will stay there for another day, a day or two, to fix the problem before it commences or proceed on its journey. So within those 2 days that you have issues, remember you have a perishable commodity that you're carrying. So which, as days go by, it begins to become perishable. Okay, so when you have such issues, what do you do? So it means that we also need to begin to invest a lot in our production, in our distribution process. How can we easily move commodities from point A to point B within 5 minutes? Okay, it's achievable, it can be done. It's all about investments. Okay, how can we easily move commodities? So that's why we need to have more cargo airports. Okay, we need to invest a lot in our rail systems. Okay, and also design solutions that will help us also what we call cold chain systems, that even you're moving it through road and is properly kept in cold chain solution, then it helps protect your product, your goods, or your agricultural produce that is being conveyed. So once you're able to tie all these food systems together, it gives us it makes food security easy to achieve in Nigeria and Africa. So investors, partners, governments, and all governments, both federal and state, this to begin to look at how we can begin to tie down or lock down its value chain food systems and create solutions. Yeah. So as Africans or as Nigerians, we have responsibility for us to attain food security, and those are critical things. So how do you and I, show that level of responsibility to attain food security? Number one, we must be able to participate in food production. So even as an individual, you ask yourself simple questions in your environment. How well have you been able to produce as little as tomatoes or plant vegetables in your environment? It doesn't have to be on an open land. You will get a small container, plant it there, and you'll be amazed the output you'll get. These are simple contributions. I've been able to support smaller farmers within your environment, okay, that within your community. Okay, these are simple things that we need to do as individuals to help us increase food production and also help us enhance food productivity. So I want to say thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to do this, and also it's a privilege to do this. Thank you so much, and I hope that we've all gained one or two things from this conversation. Thank you.